Hey there, let me ask you something a little bold. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but men still pull away? Or maybe you've been told to just be yourself, but somehow that advice keeps leading to mixed signals, ghosting, or dead-end connections. If that sounds familiar, then this is the video that flips the entire game. Because today I'm revealing 7 rarely discussed rules that men don't talk about, but deeply respond to. These aren't gimmicks or manipulation tactics. These are powerful shifts in how you carry yourself, speak, and show up emotionally that create magnetic pull without chasing, pretending, or losing who you are. Here's the truth. Men are not as complicated as you've been led to believe. They're just incredibly responsive to certain traits that signal confidence, emotional intelligence, and high value. And once you understand these 7 rules, you'll stop guessing and start attracting. In this video, we're diving deep. I'll break down each rule with real examples, psychological insight, and mindset upgrades that women around the world are using to create lasting attraction, effortlessly. So whether you're single and exploring your options, dating and tired of the games, or in a relationship that needs rebalancing, this is your roadmap to becoming the kind of woman men not only desire, but cherish. Stick with me until the end. Rule number 7 alone might just change the way you see yourself forever. Let's get started. Let's begin with something that silently determines how every man sees you. And it's not your looks, your charm, or even your words. It's your self-worth. Not the kind you post about, not the kind you recite in affirmations but don't believe. I'm talking about the kind of deep, embodied self-worth that lives in your energy before you even say a word. When a woman truly values herself, you can feel it. There's no performance, no pressure, no over-explaining. She walks into the room like she belongs there, not because she's trying to prove it, but because she doesn't question it. And men pick up on that immediately. You become magnetic the moment you stop seeking permission to take up space. The moment you stop asking, "Am I enough for him?" and start asking, "Is he aligned with the woman I'm becoming?" That's when the dynamic flips. You stop being the one who waits. You start being the one who chooses. Here's what self-worth doesn't look like: overgiving to be liked, making excuses for someone's inconsistency, shrinking to keep the peace. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. And every time you abandon yourself to be chosen, you're sending a silent message that your value is negotiable. But when you're rooted in self-worth, your energy says, "I already belong to myself." And because of that, you don't chase, you don't settle, you don't try to prove your worth, you protect it. That's the woman a high-value man won't forget. Because when you carry that kind of presence, you don't just attract someone, you filter out everyone who doesn't meet your standard. You become unavailable to anything that doesn't feel deeply aligned. You can have chemistry with someone and still know it's not for you. You can feel attraction and still walk away when it costs your peace. That's what self-worth gives you: options, power, freedom. And it's not about arrogance. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about knowing that no connection is worth abandoning the relationship you have with yourself. The most magnetic woman in the room is never the loudest. She's the one who is fully anchored in who she is. She's not swayed by attention because she already has her own. She doesn't need to be saved, chosen, or completed. And that energy, that's what makes men pursue her. So ask yourself, honestly, if I stopped waiting to be chosen, how would I start treating myself? Because the moment you start living like you are the love of your life, that's the moment the right man will recognize you as the woman of his. And this is just the beginning. The next rule builds on this, and it's the difference between being heard and being respected. Keep watching. There's something about a woman who speaks, and the entire energy in the room shifts, not because she's loud, but because she's centered. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She doesn't rush her words. She's not talking to fill space. She's speaking to be felt. This is what it means to speak with feminine authority. It's not about dominating. It's not about proving you're strong. It's about owning your truth with quiet certainty. And that's what high-value men notice immediately. A woman who speaks from grounded clarity, not ego, not reactivity, but presence, becomes unforgettable. A lot of women think that being feminine means being passive or overly agreeable. Others believe they have to speak like a man to be respected. Neither of those things are true. Feminine authority lives in the space in between. where softness and strength coexist. You speak not to be loud, but to lead. You use fewer words, but every word lands. You don't yell, and yet your boundaries are clear. You don't seek attention, yet people naturally listen when you talk. That's the power of owning your voice. You can say no with a smile and mean every syllable. You can say that doesn't work for me without apology, without justification, and when someone crosses a line, you don't react, you respond. Feminine authority doesn't mean explaining your worth, it means assuming it's obvious. And when you speak from that place, you're not performing, you're embodying. Men are drawn to this. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. Your voice, your tone, your timing, it signals to them that you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you become the mirror that challenges them to rise. It's not about being intimidating, it's about being intentional. You speak with emotional maturity, you say what you mean, and you don't say more than necessary. There's restraint, there's depth, there's an energy that says, I've thought this through, I trust my words, and I don't need them approved. This doesn't just impact your romantic life, it changes how you show up everywhere. At work, in friendships, in your family. When you speak with feminine authority, you're not just communicating, you're creating impact. So here's something to reflect on. Are you using your voice to connect or to defend? Are you speaking from fear or from truth? Because when you find that still, unshakable place within you and speak from there, people will not only hear you, they'll feel you. And once a man feels your voice, you'll live in his memory long after the conversation ends. The next rule takes this even deeper, because confidence isn't always in what you say. Sometimes it's in how softly you carry yourself while still holding all your power. Keep watching. There's a kind of confidence that doesn't try to convince anyone. It doesn't need to. It's not loud. It doesn't need to lead the room or dominate the space. It simply exists, gently, unshakably, and fully present. That's soft confidence, and it's more powerful than most people realize. This is the kind of confidence that comes from within. It's not curated. It's not calculated. It's the result of a woman knowing herself so deeply that she no longer questions her worth, even in silence. And this energy is disarming in the most beautiful way. A soft, confident woman doesn't walk into a room hoping to be noticed. She walks in noticing herself first. She's not looking for validation. She's already aligned with her value. That's what makes heads turn. Not the way she looks, but the way she carries herself. She smiles, but not to be polite. She smiles because joy lives in her. She listens, but not because she's afraid to speak. She listens because she doesn't need to prove anything. She speaks, not to perform, but to connect, clearly, calmly, and without second-guessing herself. That's the kind of confidence that stays with a man long after the conversation ends. High-quality men are drawn to this energy because it doesn't pressure them. It invites them. It doesn't chase. It attracts, because there's no agenda, no proving, no pretending, just truth, just ease, just presence. Soft confidence is rooted in emotional balance. It says, I don't need to control how you see me. I trust how I see myself. It lets you express needs without fear. It lets you walk away without drama. It lets you hold space without shrinking. In a world that often rewards loud performance, soft confidence is rebellion. It's choosing not to harden in order to be taken seriously. It's choosing not to mimic masculine energy, just to feel strong. Instead, it's holding your feminine power with tenderness, grace, and full ownership. And here's the truth most people miss. You can be soft and still be solid. You can be gentle and still be unmovable. You can be open-hearted without being unguarded. When you embrace soft confidence, you become emotionally safe to be around. Not because you're always agreeable, but because your energy doesn't demand. It welcomes, and men feel that deeply. So ask yourself, where are you still performing? Where are you still trying to earn confidence instead of embodying it? Because when you drop the act and relax into your truth, you become unforgettable, not for how much you tried, but for how much you trusted yourself. And now, we shift into something deeper, because once you've mastered presence, power, and poised. The next rule is what keeps a man chasing emotional depth. The kind that makes him feel you, not just watch you. Let's go there next. There's something quietly captivating about a woman who understands her own emotional world. She doesn't avoid it, suppress it, or perform it for attention. She simply knows how to move through it, with grace, with presence, and with power. That's what it means to be emotionally in tune. And it's one of the most attractive, unforgettable qualities a woman can embody. Most people think emotional intelligence is about control, keeping it together, holding it in, staying composed. But true emotional tuning isn't about tightening up. It's about softening with clarity. It's not chaos. It's not shut down. It's the ability to say, I feel something, and I'm not afraid of it. This kind of presence is magnetic to high-value men. Because in a world full of emotional volatility and numbness, a woman who knows what she's feeling and can express it without blame is a rare gem. She doesn't explode when triggered. She doesn't fake a smile when she's disappointed. She doesn't run from intensity. She meets it with honesty. She might say, that didn't sit right with me, and I'm figuring out why. Or I'm feeling distant right now, and I want to understand what shifted. There's no drama in that, just awareness. Ownership, emotional maturity. Men feel safe with women like this, not because she makes them comfortable all the time, but because she's consistent. She doesn't turn cold when something feels off. She doesn't punish him with silence. She simply stays with herself and invites connection instead of control. That's the difference between reaction and response. One pushes love away. The other allows it to deepen. But it starts with your relationship to your own emotions. If you avoid your anger, you'll lash out in confusing ways. If you bury your sadness, it will turn into resentment. If you deny your needs, you'll end up overgiving just to be seen. Being emotionally in tune doesn't mean you're always calm. It means you understand what's rising inside of you and make room for it without letting it run the show. And that ability, it makes you unforgettable. Because suddenly, you're not just attractive, you're emotionally magnetic. You create a space where depth is welcome, where truth is safe, where love has room to actually grow. So ask yourself, without judgment, am I honest with what I feel? Or do I hide behind being chill, because I'm scared of being too much? Do I express myself with clarity, or do I expect others to read my silence? When you become emotionally in tune, you become emotionally trustable. You stop needing someone else to manage your experience, and instead you lead with self-awareness. And coming up next is a powerful contrast, because the moment you master emotional connection, you need to learn how to pull back just enough to remain captivating. The next rule is about mystery, and it's what keeps you unforgettable, long after you leave the room. Let's go. There's a reason why some women leave a man thinking about them long after the conversation ends, even when she didn't say much. It's not magic, it's not manipulation, it's mystery. And when you know how to hold it, you become unforgettable. Mystery doesn't mean playing games. It's not about being confusing or hot and cold. It's not silence used as strategy. Real mystery, the kind that captivates, is about what you don't give away too soon. It's about leaving space. Space for curiosity, for imagination, for pursuit. A woman who keeps the mystery alive knows how to share her world without handing it over all at once. She lets people discover her, layer by layer, not because she's hiding, but because she values what she's built inside. She doesn't overshare every detail on the first date. She doesn't rush to prove her loyalty, her history, her intentions. She lets someone earn access to her story, and that pacing makes everything feel more valuable. Mystery says, there's more to me than you can see right now. It says, I enjoy your presence, but I don't need to be constantly available to prove my interest. It's the difference between openness and overexposure. The truth is, we live in a world addicted to instant access. Everyone's revealing everything, all the time. But mystery creates emotional gravity. It draws people in, not because you're withholding, but because you're anchored. You know you're worth discovering slowly. And men, especially masculine men, are wired to respond to the unknown. They're not just drawn to beauty. They're pulled in by the possibility that there's something deeper to uncover, something sacred, something not handed out casually. That doesn't mean you hide your emotions. It means you don't exhaust your presence by being emotionally naked with people who haven't earned it. You don't owe instant access to your fears, your past, or your inner world. The most magnetic women know how to be both warm and a little out of reach. Enough to intrigue, enough to invite, never enough to overwhelm. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like pausing before answering a personal question, not because you're nervous, but because you're considering what actually feels right to share. It looks like being intentional with your time, not in a way that punishes, but in a way that says, I value my energy, and I don't give it away without thought. It looks like presence without pressure, intimacy without immediacy, desire without desperation. And the beauty of mystery, it allows a man to choose to explore you. It creates the space for pursuit and keeps the connection dynamic and alive. So if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things but something's missing, this might be it. You gave too much too soon and left nothing for his imagination to chase. Don't disappear, just don't give everything away. Now, what happens when you combine mystery with joy? When your energy becomes so contagious, he craves more of it just to feel alive again. That's what Rule #6 is all about, and it's a game changer. Let's go there next. There's something undeniably attractive about a woman who's genuinely lit up from the inside. She laughs easily. She moves through the world with a sense of ease. She doesn't wait for life to excite her. She brings her own joy to the room. That kind of energy is magnetic, not because it's loud or perfect or polished, but because it's real. And men, they feel it instantly, because joy isn't just an emotion, it's a frequency. And when a woman is tuned into her joy, she becomes unforgettable. Prioritizing your own joy isn't about pretending to be happy all the time. It's not fake positivity or forcing a smile when you're hurting. It's about choosing to live in alignment with what feels good to your soul, even when no one's watching, even when no one's clapping. Because joy is personal. It's sacred. It's the thing that reminds you, I am alive and this moment is mine. When a woman lives that way, not waiting for a man, a relationship, or a milestone to give her permission, she becomes the kind of presence that men don't just desire, they admire. She's not chasing love. She's too busy being love. She's not proving her worth. She's enjoying her life. That's the secret. Joy makes you radiant. It makes you high value. Because a joyful woman doesn't just want a man. She chooses from abundance, not emptiness. And that shift changes everything. She doesn't stay in draining conversations. She doesn't beg for breadcrumbs of attention. She doesn't shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. She dances. She laughs. She invests in friendships. She creates. She rests. She says no to what depletes her, and yes to what lights her up. Not because it makes her more attractive, but because it makes her more herself. That authenticity, that freedom, that's what a high-value man can't stop thinking about. Because here's what no one tells you. Men aren't looking for someone to fix or save. They're drawn to women who inspire them to rise. And nothing inspires like joy that comes from within. A woman in her joy doesn't complain about being bored. She creates magic in ordinary moments. She doesn't wait for a date night to dress up. She does it because it feels good. She doesn't rely on anyone to entertain her, because she knows how to entertain herself. And that kind of woman, she's unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, but because she's so alive, so grounded in her pleasure, that her energy lingers in every room she leaves. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something just because it made you smile? Not for productivity, not for praise, just for the spark. Start there. Build a life so full that love becomes the cherry on top, not the cake. Now we're moving into something bold, because rule number 7 is where everything changes. It's about choosing yourself, even when it scares you, even when it means walking away. Let's talk about emotional standards. Ready? Here's something that might surprise you. Boundaries are not walls, they're invitations. And when set from a place of self-worth, they don't push people away. They draw the right people closer. Men don't lose interest in women who set boundaries. They lose interest in women who lose themselves. Because when you don't honor your limits, you teach others not to either. A high-value woman sets boundaries not to punish, but to protect her peace. She's not reactive. She's responsive. She's not cold. She's clear. She doesn't create conflict, but she doesn't fear it either. And that clarity, that emotional backbone, it's magnetic. A boundary isn't about controlling others. It's about guiding yourself. It's the moment you say, this is where I end, and someone else begins. It's the quiet decision to stop over-explaining, over-accommodating, or tolerating behavior that drains your energy. When you speak your boundaries calmly and consistently, you instantly stand out. Why? Because in a world where most people say yes to avoid discomfort, you say no to protect alignment. That's rare, and men feel that. Picture this. He texts at 11 p.m., no plan, just vibes. You don't reply with attitude. You don't ghost him. You respond in your power. Maybe you say, I prefer plans made with intention. I'm not available last minute. That one sentence says it all. I value myself, and I'm not here to entertain inconsistency. Boundaries are not about creating distance. They create depth. They set the tone for the kind of connection you're available for. They say, I'm not afraid to walk away, because I'm already home in myself. And here's what makes them even more powerful. You don't just set them with others, you honor them with yourself. You stop chasing when clarity is missing. You stop texting first, just to keep the energy alive. You stop ignoring red flags, just because there's chemistry. You trust that love built on respect won't require your exhaustion. Men notice this. They might not even know why they feel so drawn in. But it's the steadiness, the softness backed by steel, that makes them want to lean closer. Not to test you, but to meet you. Because your boundary isn't a challenge, it's a standard. It shows him what you will and won't participate in. And if he can't rise to meet it, that's not your failure, that's his filter. So ask yourself honestly, do your boundaries serve your highest self, or your fear of being alone? Because when you set boundaries with love and consistency, you're not pushing anyone away. You're simply saying, only those who can honor me belong in my world. And that is the final piece that transforms you from someone he dates to someone he never forgets. You've just unlocked the 7 rules that high-value men are naturally drawn to. Not because they're tricks or tactics, but because they reflect the kind of woman who's fully alive in her truth. And if you've made it this far, something inside you is shifting. Maybe it's a spark, maybe it's a deeper knowing. Either way, this is your reminder. You don't need to become someone else to be desired. You just need to return to yourself. Let that land. The world teaches women to chase love by bending, pleasing, overgiving. But the truth, real love, deep, masculine, emotionally available love, doesn't respond to sacrifice. It responds to self-honor, to energy that says, I'm already whole. I don't need to be rescued. I want to be met. That's what these rules were about. Owning your worth, expressing with clarity, choosing joy, holding mystery, honoring your emotional world, setting loving boundaries, and ultimately choosing you. Because the moment you fully choose yourself, everything changes. Men show up differently. Life feels lighter. You stop grasping and start receiving. So what now? First, rewatch this video whenever you feel yourself slipping into old patterns. This isn't just information. It's a new standard for how you show up in love and in life. Second, reflect. Which rule felt the most challenging? That's your growth edge. That's where the transformation begins. Third, join the conversation. Drop a comment below. Which rule hit you the hardest? What shift are you ready to make starting today? Your voice could inspire another woman on this journey. Don't keep it to yourself. And finally, subscribe if you haven't already. Because this channel isn't just about relationships. It's about reclaiming your feminine power, rewriting your love story, and becoming the kind of woman who attracts effortlessly by being radically herself. Remember, you don't chase. You don't settle. You lead with softness. You anchor in strength. And the man who's meant for you, he'll rise to meet you there. You're not for everyone, but you're everything to the right one. Until next time, stay rooted, stay radiant, and stay you.